What up, crew? Raise your hands or give me a cool little head nod or maybe like a little finger wave if you've ever found yourself in the following situation or something close to the following situation. You have opened a Word document for a project, report, a paper, a proposal, any sort of writing project, and you've stared at the blank page and you've stared and you've stared and you've stared. And you try writing a sentence and then you're like, nope, delete, delete, delete. Try writing another sentence, delete, delete, delete. And this goes on and on and on until you walk away. All right. What if you have stayed up really late tweaking PowerPoint slides for a presentation tomorrow? Or maybe you missed a deadline. Could be a real deadline or a soft deadline because you were still you were perfecting the wording of your document. You were perfecting the format of your document. So it looked really great. The graphics of your document. And guess what? The document wasn't even a final document. It was a draft that someone else needed to review. So maybe along the same vein, you have delayed getting feedback for days, weeks, even months because you're still editing and revising and it can totally get better. And don't worry about it. Like, I'm almost done. I'm going to get it to you pretty soon. Just give me a little bit more time. Or maybe you have avoided starting a new project by doing literally anything else under the sun. Gosh, I love how clean my house can get when that happens. Or you've thought about trying something new. It could be in your work life, it could be in your personal life, just something new to the point of obsessively daydreaming about it, but you never take a move towards it. Or, I mean, maybe in the most extreme, you hate your job, the passion. You have no idea what to do next. And you can insert anything you want for job. Could be school, could be a friendship, could be where you live, situation. You hate it. Hate it, hate it, hate it. But you don't know what to do next. So I'd say taking a step back, and we go on, right? There's more examples of all this. Taking a step back, these kind of fall in the realms of freeze and perfectionism. So freezing, you're trying to start something new, or you're trying to reiterate on something that exists, and you just can't even get going. Perfectionism. Well, I mean, I could give it over to someone else for feedback, but I would really rather just I'm gonna keep working on. No, I'm just gonna. No, I bet it could be better, and I think I can write this paragraph again. You freeze or you perfect, or you do both, or it's a fun cycle. For me, it's definitely a fun cycle. I freeze, I perfect, I perfect, I freeze, I perfect, back and forth until I have driven myself absolutely crazy. So, welcome to another episode of STEM Identity. I'm your host, Dr. Anna Hodshire, and I have a PhD in atmospheric chemistry. And throughout that process, there was a lot of freezing and a lot of perfectionism. And I've had several jobs since then, and I've found myself in an assistant professor role at Colorado State University. And I'll be honest that I hate freezing and I hate perfectionism in myself. And I have worked on this through many, many, many angles. And today I'm really excited to talk to you about a very simple framework that actually works for me for both freezing and perfectionism. And I know we've been having a lot of mental health conversations recently, and I think that's really important, right? It's so valuable to normalize, right? You're not the only person who missed a deadline because you were perfecting the format of your document. You're not the only person who really wants to try something new, but you can't even take a step because you have no idea how to even start taking a step towards it. These are all super, super normal. And they're also overcomable. And sometimes it just takes the right combination of motivation and inspiration and someone else giving you that little nudge. So I'm hoping today I'll give you a little nudge that might help in some of these areas where you feel like you are freezing and or perfecting. And I do want to take a note that perfectionism is often, definitely for me and for many of us, is a fear of visibility, and it's a fear of criticism and freezing as well, especially if you're starting something new. Well, if I start something new, then someone's going to find out about it and they're going to see me and they're going to judge me. Well, why is this person doing this thing? Oh, blah, 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 right? All the little voices in your head that want to go off because you need to hand off what you are doing to someone else to get feedback, or you're handing off something that you're doing to the world to say, hey, world, here's this item I produced, this paper, this video, this recording, this song. Please don't hate it, world. It's a fear of visibility. And I want to normalize that. It's really normal to be afraid to be seen. And I'll give you my short story around I had to face freezing and perfectionism and fear of visibility in a big way getting this podcast off the ground. Now, I don't know if 2 people are listening to this episode. I don't know if 2 million people over time are going to listen to this episode. It doesn't really matter, because even those 2 people could be sitting there and being like, oh, Anna's voice sounds like a Muppet. Anna has like this Valley Girl lift sometimes, and it's super annoying. Anna does this, right? You could just be listening to this podcast as a drinking game. I hope you're drinking water, not alcohol. Stay hydrated, bros. But, I mean, you can drink alcohol, but just like balance it. Okay, I'm getting a little off track here. But you could be listening to this episode just to criticize me. And that's okay. I mean, that's kind of a weird use of your time, if I'm being honest, unless you're using it to sort of understand what you don't like in podcasting, what you don't like in public communication, so you don't do that. All right, cool. I'm glad I could be a learning tool for that direction. And that's fine. That's great, actually. Rock out. Most of you listening are probably not sitting there going, everything she does annoys me. Maybe occasionally you're like, she talks super fast and sometimes she slows down, but for the most part, it's like bullet train speeding through Japan. Wow, really fast. Yeah. So I had to do this freeze and perfectionism, getting the podcast off the ground, because of course the whole point of a podcast is not for me to just sort of record it and then, dump the files in the metaphorical attic in my no, that's not box in my attic. There we go. I was gonna say attic in my basement, which made no sense, but that's all right. These episodes are not meant to be hidden. They're meant to be public. And again, 2 people, 2 million people, they're meant to be seen. They're meant to be visible. And if I think back, like, why didn't I even start this podcast? It was kind of a chain of events. I first got the opportunity to be a guest on a colleague's podcast. I don't think that episode has even come out yet. The colleague's been really busy recently with a new career change. I also did really poorly, in my opinion, on the podcast. I have not been interviewed that many times in my life, and I'm not the best at clean, concrete, concise communication. This is something I'm working on. But I will admit the podcast is sort of an area where I can kind of wander around for a bit and, go on little verbal journeys. And that's not always the best, right? Sometimes it's better to get to the point. So we're actually probably going to re-record that episode. So it doesn't exist. Don't worry about it. Maybe it exists by the point in time you're listening. But the point is, a colleague who was very similar to me, at least on paper, it was making a podcast, and that made my brain go, didn't even really think about the fact that I guess we can make podcasts. That's kind of cool. But I just stored that in my brain. This was, I believe, last spring sometime. So 2025-ish in the spring. Started in my brain, moved on with my life. And then in the summer, a woman that I follow and respect and interact with her community in some regards was doing a podcast course in the fall. And she had a couple of, I don't know what you would call them, like not sales pitch classes, but basically boot camp. I think that's what you call it, like a little mini boot camp where like, hey, come and learn a couple tools, a couple ideas around podcasting. And if you're excited about it and you want to dive in more, I have this course. It's live, every week for, I believe it was about 3 months. We're going to meet, we're going to work on things. And I was like, boot camp's free or is really cheap. And I was like, screw it. Let's just take it. It sounds kind of fun. Haven't really ever thought about podcasting, but why not? So I took the boot camp, and something in that boot camp, some little voice inside of me went, hey, we should do this. Let's just try it. Let's see what happens. So I signed up for the class, and in the class, week by week, we moved through fairly simple things that maybe I wouldn't have thought about had I decided out of the blue, you know what, I'm going to start a podcast. Like, you could do a trailer. What is your podcast about? Of course, like, you want to have some vague theme in mind, but, starting to concretize things instead of it just being all kind of up in my head, floating around. Like, it was forcing me like, oh, let's let's like get something out on paper on what the podcast is about. Let's try to write a description. Let's record a trailer. Just get it recorded. It doesn't matter. And the thing that they emphasized over and over and over again, and I say they because it was multiple people teaching, which was cool. It was cool to get all those perspectives. The things that they emphasized over and over and over and over again was just take your next messy step. Next messy step. Oh, I fought this tooth and nail. I was like, no, thank you. There's no messy here. My trailer must be perfection. It has to have a crystal clear vision of what this podcast is. And anyone who listens to it can know exactly this podcast is for me or this podcast is not for me. I recorded that damn trailer dozens of times. Oh, same thing for the description, except I was getting a little tired at that point. Like, my description must be, well, I mean, like pretty dang perfect. And then there was social media strategy, which I'm not really a social media person. And I was like, oh no, this sounds hard. I mean, I will give them credit. They were like, social media is up to you. Some people have very successful podcasts and they're not on social media. It's not the only way, right? There's all these other ways you can get out there and let your voice be heard. But week after week, we're moving through thing after thing. And I had to make a choice at some point. I had to basically just decide, okay, I can either just start putting it out there and get better over time, or I can just keep tweaking the dang trailer in my bedroom to be worthy of competing with what? This American Life? Like, come on. That's unrealistic, right? You have to start somewhere, and you're going to start somewhere that's not as good as maybe you're hoping it will be someday. So I leaned in. I said, all right, fine. Next messy step. This next trailer recording I do, good enough. Slap some background music on it, post it, whatever. Right? Like, I mean, there was a little bit of that kind of like meh at first, but then I kind of started leaning in. I was like, you know what? This is actually more fun this way. I'm having more fun just doing next messy steps. What episode do I want to record from number one? That was another thing. I was like, I have to have the perfect like episode arc. I'm like, I'm not telling a story. This isn't like a true crime podcast. I'm just putting out ideas. And probably most of you listening, you haven't listened to every single episode because some of them don't appeal to you, and that's perfectly fine. And different episodes are going to appeal to different people. And some of you are going to be diehard fans who listen to every single episode, and I really appreciate you. Thanks, Mom. I know you're listening. And the rest of you can just pick and choose, right? I don't have to have the perfect 3 episodes because it's not like I had 10,000 listeners waiting with bated breath for me to drop episode 1. No, I had like 4 people who were like, oh, cool. I know you're doing this. I look forward to your first episode. And then, the rest of you, you're finding me however you're finding me. So I just took the next messy step and I leaned into what was fun and what was interesting. And here I am. I don't know exactly. See if I go to my episode tracker. This is basically episode 30-ish based on when I actually release it. So, I've done 30 next messy steps. And they're not perfect and they don't sound like This American Life. And I know I stumble over words and I know my pacing can be weird. And sometimes I get very excited and I speak very quickly. And sometimes I speak kind of slowly because I'm working on being a little bit more slow in how I speak. And that is my next messy step. And so we can take this next messy step and let's actually just go back to that list that I started at the beginning of, give me your cool head nod if you've ever found yourself in the following. And let me just give you ideas of what a few next messy steps could be. All right, you've opened the blank Word doc for your report, paper, proposal, whatever. You're staring at the blank page. I cannot stare at a blank page. I can't do it. It is too intimidating. I template everything. I have templates for proposals. I have templates for notes. I have templates for everything, guys. So my first messy step here is just take a template that is appropriate for what I'm writing, rename it, and save it in the right folder. Awesome. All right, I took a messy step. I have a freaking template ready to go. Okay, I'm going to open that template and I'm going to think about the problem at hand and I'm going to go, I wonder what section actually might be the easiest to start on or seems kind of fun to start on. And let's just get some words down. If I have absolutely no idea, maybe I'll start from the beginning, but it's often a lot easier to just, you don't have to write in some linear fashion when it's a report, a paper, proposal, whatever. You have so many different sections that you have to get out there but you just start somewhere. And then tomorrow, when you open the same document, not only is it not blank because it's a template, it has section headers, it's got like 2 paragraphs in like section 3 on personnel. Oh my gosh, awesome. Look at all that stuff you've already done. All right, next one. You stayed up late tweaking your PowerPoint slides or your presentation, whatever, for next day. Really try to get feedback from someone before this happens to you, right? 2 days before the presentation, grab someone's time. Hey, colleague, could you take a quick look at these slides? It's for this type of presentation. These people are going to be in the room. Do you have any feedback? And then, you know what? Put it away. You literally, I don't know how old you are listening to this. And I don't know if you pulled overnighters in college. I pulled almost no overnighters. Looking back, pulled on overnighters partying, if I'm being perfectly honest, and that was pretty rough. I don't think I pulled any overnighters studying because I knew even then, I was like, I don't get smarter at 12 a.m. See, I couldn't even remember if it was PM or AM. That's because I'm never awake at 12 a.m. unless by sheer accident. I don't get brilliant at 2 a.m. These things don't freaking happen. I'm putting it away because it's good enough. Sometimes the next messy step is just saying good enough. That's what I do for every single episode. Yeah, I could re-record these episodes 3, 4, 6 times, and they would probably be marginally better. I was going to say slightly better, marginally better by episode 5. And then they're probably going to like really suck by episode 6 because now I've kind of rehearsed things too much and I'm sort of overthinking myself, right? These are not good things. Good enough can be a next messy step. You have missed deadlines because you were still perfecting what you're working on, or delayed getting feedback for days to weeks because you're still editing and revising. Next messy step, just hand it off. There's always going to be something that can improve in someone else's perception. And often that feedback, those suggestions for improvements are real and they will improve what you're working with. And sometimes they're not, right? And sometimes you just have to take a critical eye and be like, I see that you want me to improve this thing over here, but I completely disagree with you. Thank you for your time. It's not a big deal. For me, I actually learned this really quickly after my first journal article paper in grad school. First draft, worked really, really hard on it, worked on the intro so hard, tried to get it so good. I was kind of proud of it. I was like, here you go, advisor. Advisor rewrote every sentence of that thing, every sentence. And I was like, well, all right, I guess I should probably get feedback sooner if that's what's going to happen. And maybe that was kind of a harsh experience, but I think that's kind of that dunk in the deep end of the icy pool of, I mean, people are going to give you feedback no matter what. So just hand it over, see what they think, and then take what you agree with and toss what you don't agree with. What about avoiding starting a new project by doing literally anything else under the sun? Well, what's the easiest or most fun sounding part? Or are there some like boring organizational strategies you can do to just kind of get it structured out, right? Kind of going to the first example where I can't write unless there's a template. Can you make a template, or can you do, something similar that just gets you organized? And then is there something fun you can start on? Maybe it's you need to do a little research. Remember our observe, reflect, articulate framework a few episodes back, right? Okay, like, do you know anything about what you're doing with this new project? You don't? Awesome. Let's do some observations. That sounds like 4 days of reading to me, or 2 days, or one day, or however much time you have, right? Open Google Scholar and find some cool papers or whatever it is you need to do to research what you're doing. What about thinking about trying something new to the point of obsessive daydreaming, but never really taking a step towards it? Is there a small commitment you could make? Is there a class? So this podcasting thing, I wasn't to the point of obsessively daydreaming over doing a podcast, but when I heard the boot camp was coming out, I was like, that's kind of cool. And then I took the boot camp as a small commitment and I was like, dang, this is really cool. And then I was like, well, I mean, the class is not free and it's not the cheapest thing on this planet Earth, but I like learning and I like the structure they've set up for this. And I I guess I'm going to commit to this class. And if I commit to this class, I guess I'm committing to doing a podcast. And sure enough, here we are doing a podcast. So it works. And then, all right, most extreme case, hating your job or something else with a passion, but you have no idea what to do next. that one's hard. And I'm going to go ahead and encourage you to follow your curiosities. And I've had a couple episodes on this, right? I have these curiosity challenge episodes that I put out. I had the curiosity challenge originally, which is 30 days, every single day, just literally anything under the sun you're excited about, curious about, interested in. Spend 15 minutes and just do a little research on it. It could be anything: bagpipes, ducks, dragonflies, how is screen printing done, all these things, right? Just explore these curiosities. How does that help you find a new job? Well, it starts to give you little hints about what you're excited about. If you have no idea what you're really excited about and you're like, I don't even know what to do next, like, okay, well, what are your passions, right? If you just spent 30 days in a row learning more and more and more and more about trees, is there anything that you could vector towards in your current job or in a future job that has something to do with trees? Maybe there's not, but maybe there is. Keep an open mind. So next messy steps. I love next messy step. I'll give you one more concrete example of actually when I have forgotten next messy step, even though I know next messy step, which is just this past week. I needed to work on and ideally have drafted a concept paper. So there is an open proposal call, and it's a two-stage proposal call. And the first stage is just submitting a concept paper. In other words, a short summary of like, what is my idea? How am I going to achieve it? And then if I'm invited, I will be invited to submit a full proposal. And I actually love this because you're not spending all this time on a full proposal package, which requires like budget and all these different forms. You're just writing a quick paper, which means you got to do a little bit of research and write. And that's awesome. And this was for a pretty new direction for me, a direction I haven't thought about, particularly a direction I wasn't even that excited about until this week. I'm a pretty excitable person and I can get excited about things fast. Fortunately, that's one of my superpowers. So I started by, 2 weeks ago, I knew this was out, doing a little email back and forth, brainstorming with my boss. He gave me a couple ideas. Some of them I wasn't excited about. One of them I was like, okay, and then early this week, I was like, all right, that thing that I was about, all right, I could see that one. Let's pull on that one. And I knew that I needed to do some observations, reading in the field, but I didn't have a ton of time. So I needed to be tying in my reflections and my articulations, my writing, getting it out there pretty quickly. And I had to pretty much constantly remind myself not to be stuck in judgment and not to be stuck in freeze, but just to keep moving and refining as I went forward. But things were still hard. I still I feel like it was like the 5 stages of grieving. Like, one day I'd be like, this idea is so cool. And the next day I'd be like, oh, this idea was terrible, or this species isn't going to work, or this is stupid and it's not transformational. And there's no way I'm going to get invited, like, let alone get funded, like not even get invited to submit a whole proposal, blah, blah, blah. So by Friday, and I did have the chance to have a sit down meeting with my boss, do a little, and he's not really my boss. This doesn't matter. Anyways, the director of the research center I work within, had a chance to sit down with him and try to hash out some ideas. And he gave me some really good directions, and I was able to kind of refine them into a way that makes sense to me. So Friday, here we are, lots of sections of the document left, new direction, started rewriting to that new direction, and was almost immediately frozen on, oh crap, do I write about the specific use case here, or do I keep it more generalized here? And I kind of like oscillated back and forth. And then I was like, you know what? It doesn't matter. Just start writing about the use case because you know it really well. And when you're revising next week, if you realize, okay, I actually need a little more generalization here, then cool, add in the more generalization, but just start writing, getting it on the paper. Next messy step. Weekend rolls around, Saturday morning, weather's nice. It's been snowing and raining this past week here in Fort Collins. So I was like, I'm going to take a bike ride because all the trails are going to be kind of sloppy. And I feel bad walking and letting my dogs run around on the trails when they're sloppy. So bike ride it is, biking along, kind of thinking about how this week went, being like, there were some challenges, that there were some sticky bits. And what could I do about these sticky bits, right? I don't want to have every single week where I have to write a new proposal or new concept paper to feel this sticky. So let's get better. And I realized that I had not internalized that next messy step framework. I kind of hinted myself at it by the sort of like, just write, just do, keep moving, keep refining. But I hadn't really reminded myself with grace and compassion that all I'm doing is making little messy steps and they're all going to add up to something that I can totally work with, that I can edit, I can refine, I can clean up, and I can get a little bit of feedback on and get submitted. Because you know what? The thing I submit to the funding agency, the concept paper itself, it's not going to be perfection. Hopefully, grammar wise, it's going to be awesome. But other than that, I'm going to have a couple months before I even hear back whether I'm invited to submit for the full proposal. So that's a couple more months of thinking in the background, like, oh, how would I change this? That's a couple more months of learning new information and adding in new pieces. I just need to make some messy steps and get it in and see if they like it, because they're not going to love it because I managed to craft the perfect opening sentence. They're going to love it because it's a good idea and they can see the purpose in it, or they're not going to love it. And that's okay too. So I realized that, yeah, in my work, I do tend to be a little more tied up in sort of this perfectionism-ish, freeze-ish stage of life. In the podcast, I've completely embraced next messy step. Occasionally I'm like, the intro was terrible, I'm going to restart it or whatever. But like, I roll with it for the most part. I'm okay with what happens. There's very light editing on the back end, so you don't hear all the weird things that happens in an episode, but you hear most of them, let's be honest. But not always in work, right? In work, sometimes I do have that freeze and perfectionism. So my public commitment from this episode is to really lean into next messy steps at work. And I really like doing 30-day challenges, 30-day sprints, because for me, doing that kind of integrates it into a habit. Doing that 30-day curiosity challenge every day for about 15 minutes integrated into me a habit of, oh, I get to be kind of curious of, not kind of, I get to be curious about something for a little bit of time in my day. And that means that I can be curious lots of times in my day. It doesn't just have to be once, but if it's just once, that's better than 0 times, right? I'd rather have one curiosity than 0 curiosities. So I'm going to do a pretty similar one. I'm going to do kind of a casual social media challenge on this one, casual for myself, because I am working on my relationship with social media. I have in the past spent way too much time just kind of scrolling idly, checking, but I'm working on just being very intentional with how I interact with social media. I love talking to all of you on social media, so please, please, please reach out. Happy to chat, but I am just being a little more careful. So casually for 30 days, I'm going to post something that notes a messy step in that day. And if it's a work day, it's going to be a work messy step. And if it's a weekend, I'm not working, it might be a personal messy step. Like, hey, I recorded this episode. It's not perfect, but I'm getting it out. Or I worked on my book and I wrote this chapter and I think it's pretty fun. And I came up with this cool little idea within the chapter. Whatever it is, but 30-day social media challenge, next messy step, probably use hashtag next messy step. Doesn't seem like it's used for anything too weird out there. So I think it's a pretty good hashtag. I, of course, completely invite you to join me on the social media challenge. I would love it if we hung out and did next messy steps together. If you tag me at STEMdenity, totally repost you. You can do it on LinkedIn and tag me there. I'll repost you there. I'm on LinkedIn, Anna Hodshire. And that brings me to our outro of Learn and Move Your Feet. So we basically talked about next messy step, right? This is not a complicated episode. So the Learn and Move Your Feet, of course, is next messy step. But really, what is one thing? Just choose one thing that you're kind of frozen on, or you're procrastinating, or you're over perfecting on. What's the next messy steppy? Oh, goodness. What's a next messy step that you could do and do it? So I am asking you to actually take action this week. Don't just kind of mentally cogitate and contemplate and let it stew around in your brain. Nope. Take a next messy step. And if you want to build a habit with me, especially around work, next messy steps in work, try out a 30-day challenge. You can document it any way you want, on social media, in an Excel spreadsheet. whatever. I actually love also, I've been doing this for my curiosity challenges. I've been documenting everything in an Excel spreadsheet in a Word document so I can go back and I can understand, okay, what am I excited about? What am I curious about? I'm going to try the same thing for my next messy steps to see, okay, is there a pattern like where I'm always getting stuck, I'm always freezing, or I'm always procrastinating or trying to over perfect? And that's just a lot of really good data of like, hey, Anna, you're spending way too much time over here. So, you're spending too much time over editing your emails. Just send the damn email. Like, they're not going to care if there's a typo. They might judge for half a second. Ooh, she misspelled this word, but whatever. Doesn't matter. Next messy step. As always, thank you so much for listening. This podcast is not affiliated with my research and teaching roles at Colorado State University. But I love this podcast, and I hope that it's really helpful to you. I find that for me, it helps me communicate better, helps me be a better teacher, a better researcher, a better professor, a better advisor, a better friend, a better mentor, a better mentee, all of those things. And it's my belief that we have all these roles, right? We're always learning, we're always teaching, we're always being a mentor, we're always being a mentee. And there's lots of things that make all of these roles sticky, challenging, hard to kind of cohese together into like a really nice, integrated, calm, peaceful place. So hopefully each of these episodes is just nudging you towards whatever it is you need to take this week, your next messy steps. If you make it to the end of the episode, it's my favorite part of the episode. Song of the week. I love music. Music gets me through every single day of my life. I don't know that there's been a single day of my life that I have not listened to music since I was like a wee lass. Maybe once in a while, but that's really rare. And probably there's some quiet or not so quiet voices in your head that are slightly screaming at you. Well, that's all good and great for her, but I need to be perfect. Like, I need perfection before anyone else gets to see what I'm doing. Yeah, next messy step can be painful sometimes. Sometimes you're like, oh, I am sending this document out there and I know that it's going to get shredded. Goodbye, my baby, my poor document that I love so much. I hope that the world is not too cruel or harsh to you. And sometimes it feels like you're running towards pain in your next messy step. And that's my song of the week, Running to Pain by Kelsey Lou. I really like this song. It's got a cool beat. It's fun. I'll link it in the show notes. As always, come hang out with me. Social media, STEMdenity at Instagram, or on Instagram rather. Anna Hodshire on LinkedIn. Music is by XS Sass. We live in an algorithm world. And so any likes, shares, reviews of this podcast is greatly appreciated and helps other people find me. And I can't wait to hang out with you next week.